I will bid you greetings, consciousness. We are AhRaOnk. Beings of light. In this amalgamation of your physics, the indeterminate amount of frequency modulation that has been encapsulating your species for the last hundreds of years has now come to a fulcrum point. This being stated, consciousness in form. Recognize that you are still at a point of your manifestation where you are still feeling the reciprocity of your polarization. In other words, you are still perceiving black and white, right, wrong, yes, no, up, down, left, right. This is how you would say was first started, so your human dynamic, your merged consciousness into form, would be able to circumnavigate the physical experience. In this next purveyance through your form, each and every being upon this plane will have a re-establishment, better known as a reconveyance. If this is a linguistical format you comprise and understand. Consciousness. This reconveyance, this resaturation, this literal reboot has already been happening for quite a majority of you. Those that you will be sitting with we in this moment. You are literally already in the throes of this fundamental restart. And that is why your life or your polarity seems to swing. You may not always understand. You may not always seek to understand. This is the balance. This is your aptitude of awareness. There are some of your other, you might call it, reflected forms of light that are having difficulties in this period of time. Let's state this to your consciousness first and foremost. This is not a period of time. This is what is taking place in the saturation of manifestation. Your global hemisphere, just so we can state this now, is going through radio signal and magnetized readaptation. It does not mean you're going to start swinging on your polarity. That was our attempt at cosmic humor. What it simply means is there will be degrees of movement. There has already been quite a lot of degrees of movement. When your poles have shifted to a 20-degree axiom, this will most likely happen within the next 2 to 3 years. When your poles have shifted to a 20-degree axiom, this is where the literal thermonuclear aspect of your own cellular body will begin to recognize the chromosomal, you would call it the RNA, DNA, XY chromosome. There's been much dialogue about chromosomes, strands, 13 strand. After a while, the mathematics must baffle your mind. That was again our attempt at cosmic humor. It's not so much about the mathematics. Is it to recognize simply that this embodiment is a traveling device. This day you have gathered together for a circle, and we welcome your consciousness. We will have some dialogue about the geometry that is beginning to take place and tools that will help you with the spiral so that you can allow yourself some physical ease and comfort. Some of you have already had so many polarity swings, your physics is exhausted. We would remind you also that some of you have been feeling quite, yes, the word is happily balanced in your form, while most of the humanoid population has been feeling dissonance and imbalance, running to their medical officials to find out what is wrong. There may be some deference to finding out what is wrong, but that is not going to stop what is wrong from manifesting. What we are stating is your biokinesiological form. It is half biological, half movement orientated, and half non-physical, if there is such a thing as three halves. Breathe your form's consciousness. So beings, the transient aspects of being physical. Many of you have been focused on clearing your human, moral, social aspects so that you can have more balance, more integration in this humanoid existence. If you have noticed, that's not necessarily working. What's going on is it has nothing to do with your moral or social aspect. It has to do with the tolerance aspect. Many of you, as you have accelerated your awareness, find your tolerance or toleration of one another has had its fabric ruffled. Many times you do not understand why there are moments when you have more and less tolerance. It's not necessarily depending upon the vibration that's in front of you. It's about the vibration that's moving through you. So let's work with this right away. By the way, do some of you resonate with what was just stated about tolerance?
Yes.
Oh, good. Wanted to make sure we were speaking to the correct group. At least some of you got our cosmic humor. Some of you think you are so happy and fulfilled that you're not willing to face the intolerance. It's not about intolerance to your human race, entity humans. It's about the intolerance to being physical during this time. Many of you, each and every one of you, we called you light beings, light messengers, whatever you wish to label it. We're not speaking of that you are some sort of flashlight. You are not emanating light. You are absorbers of light. And that's what keeps this experience in its wholeness. Many of you, not always can you be in the face of the sun, but you are drawn, not for the heat, but for the energetic transfusion. Breathe your forms. For a moment or two, much of your animal kingdom, this that is of a different vibratory mass and electromagnetic field vibration. You are an engineered species. Much of these that you label your animal kingdom about you is not engineered as you. So that's why we are speaking of polarization and the circumnavigation of what is taking place onto this word labeled as tolerance. Many of the physicality forms can no longer tolerate the amount of saturation of energetic field vibration. This is why many of you are noticing there are aspects of your input-output wave carrier system that are known as your thinking ability, where it goes from open to close, and many times it gets skewed or foggy, as you humans label it. The reason of this is not because there is something happening or wrong. It is because of the amount of saturation. Each and every one of you, even during your sleep cycle, your physical embodiment is still carrying saturation of either sun or electromagnetic field. This happens to be anything that delivers an electric charge. At this point, there was a lot of discussion about microwave towers, microwave self-sufficient units, electromagnetic thermal power, nuclear power. All these vibrations have created a lot of static energy, not static electricity. Static energy that begins to ping off of the nature of your form. So there builds then a tolerance where the body says you can come in this much. The biokinesiological machine is an entity unto itself. It is a transport device. It was never designed to be in physical manifestation for so much time. Every time there is, how would you call it upon your plane? A generation, a birth cycle. Do you understand what is being stated? Every time you have a generation come here, the human embodiment is dealing with the magnetism in a different way. So the machine is no longer necessarily a transportive device. So the tolerance factor that is built into the machine, built into the conductive conducer that it naturally is, begins to resist this place. And this is why no amount of alchemical or psychological or physiological treatment to your youth, as you call it, the generations beneath or around you, that will stop these strange or polarized activities. It is because the tolerance factor in their form has reached a level where if it goes any further, the body will forget it is a light cycle device, and it will be eternally locked like the animal kingdom. And that is why we, AhRaOnk from the gates of Orion, have once again decided to come onto this plane and remind you, you are an organism of radiation and magnetized, you might call it velocity, light. You are not engineered to stay physical this long. It seems consciousness that each and every one of you are a part of, yet many of you are singular in the way in which you handle your society, and that is why many of you in this cycle have been repulsed and are resisting participation on many levels with your social, yes, you label it groups, participations. Yes, you call this, you have learned your technology. Some of you would rather be behind your technology than be in front of the human being. Does this make sense? To follow what we are speaking? The reason we put it this way is because, again, the saturation and the tolerance. Now, why would we be speaking this to you in these moments? Because you have gathered together to be with this circle. Because each and every one of you are ambassadors. You reach out and you touch many. Whether you are aware of it or not, we are. And the frequency modulations, you are still wide awake. There are moments when you would prefer to go asleep, yet the very transient vibration of form stops you, and therefore you are many times feeling incarcerated, because this that you call an emotion you label as happiness, an experience you label as love, an expression you call as emotion, seems to still not fulfill you in this time. For some of you, this might be your truth. For others of you, you dance back and forth through that modality. Now, consciousness. We ask you in these moments, watch this for. As much as you can. We are not asking you to force your physicality. Notice that the sole of the feet are touching. They are flat in this body. Some of you may not be able to apprehend or to hold that position. Please do not force. If it is more comfortable, we would suggest that you serpentine, ball into soul, into instep. Does this make sense? Do you follow? Mm-hmm. Can you see this body? Mm-hmm. Rise and look. You can either keep your forms with the soul's serpentine or together. We ask you then to pull this formation as close underneath, so to be at the base of your spine. You will find that your body does not need a chair. It is erect and natural. It will not tip forward. It will not tip back. We just ask you, for this is part of the process. This is the only thing. If you find your knees becoming stressed, we recognize, just gently push them out further away from underneath. The exact position is either plate of soul or feet together, serpentine, pull it underneath as close as you can to your spine so you can sit under it. Does this make sense? Do you follow? Mm-hmm. Yes. For those of you that are trying this, we are not suggesting that you need to be adjusted. If you cannot comfortably do this, then simply just put your feet an angular basis and just put your palms on top of your knees, and you will still find yourself in an erectile position. Breathe your forms consciousness. So, beings of light, how do you process this frustration, this seeming that it must go through some organic emotion, energy in motion, consciousness in a physical form? This vibration that we've been speaking of, this tenaciousness, this seemingly apparent and yet it comes from nowhere, this resistance, it is because once again the frequency modulations and what is taking place. How can you facilitate and adapt easier so that you will not be feeling the frequency modulations so intensely? It is a very simple procedure. It involves your mind. You may say it starts with a thought, and yet all you're doing is starting the thought, starting the second thought, and then let your mind just watch the thoughts occur. Breathe your forms. Soul beings. Here is the first step. Can you hear the vocalization appropriately?
Yes. Yes.
This is very important in the direction. From above you, from above your form, while you are in this position. This is a mentation. It is a mental thought. Think, as you label, of a spiral that is starting and growing wider. It is a counterclockwise circle that comes over the top of your form. Counterclockwise. You comprehend this statement? Yes?
Yes.
It starts at a point and it begins to grow wider. So as its emission begins to come over your form, it is wider to totally surround in its counterclockwise outward spiral. So it comes from above toward the earth. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
This is the first thought. Spiral, emanation point, expanding, so it literally encompasses spinning. Do not worry about the speed of the revolutions of the spiral. Do not be concerned where it truly begins or where it truly ends. That would involve thinking. Simply start the thought, emanation point spiral, counterclockwise, spin, and its mouth opens wide. As soon as the apex or covers your cranium and it's still emanating wider, let go of that thought. Do you follow that statement? The next thought will be a clockwise spiral, starting below the form. You could say it starts from your planetoid or Earth. It is clockwise, and it too starts at a single point and starts widening its spiral until its apex covers the form, and then it need not have direction or form, it just spirals outward. Clear? These are your two thoughts. And what you will notice is that there is a paradigm of a diamond shape. The diamond shape is now in the spiral. You have basically two diamonds as it cuts over the form of the body. Don't think about it, just notice. And there are 2 points where the spiral cross outside the form here. So you have spirals that go like that. Once you start the thought, by the way, consciousness, stop thinking about it at this moment, please. Empty your mind of thought, breathe your form. Relax your bodies from the position if you happen to be in. Just sit. Remember, beings of light, we are AhRaOnk. This propulsion, this vibration, the frequency modulations, they are happening because there is a large piece of the humanoid population that has become so entranced, so inert into living here. You have forgotten that you are travelers here. This machine, it was already part of this plane of existence. It is based in animal technology. It was modulated, given a reptilian brain. It was given a different format of how to process vibration, and it became simply a device of transportation for non-physical consciousness. You might call it an experiment if you choose, yet that could be rather confrontive to this process you call the emotional guardian, better known as an ego. Fascinating term. Bring your focus. So beings, light emanates. Your physical format is a receptor of light. when you hear the terminology of light being, sometimes the believing system may think you emanate light as well. This is a different type of light. Your systemic form must absorb light. It has to have light, so its kinesiological cellular function can continue. If you are plunged into darkness, after a while, the very vibrational core, your central nervous system would begin to shut down because it has no light. And that is why you live in an environment that has no true darkness unless it is man-made or created by some sort of event of the planet. Does this make sense? Do you comprehend? Again, why would we be telling you this information? Because you are here and you are able to receive this information. You are a transmitter. You are an ambassador, each and every one of you. When there is the appropriate being in front of you, you will remind them. It is not that you love them or care for them. It might be someone you have never met and will never participate again through physical form. Yet alignment occurs, and you will give them the StarGate device. The StarGate device has been given by many non-terrestrial visitations. We do not always call or consider ourselves non-terrestrial because we have visited so many times. We have been a part of your physical condition for eons of your measurement of time. Many times when you have felt that you have been separate or alone is when we have been emanating and vibrating next to you, so that you could once again be refueled with your forms. So, consciousness, the StarGate device, once again, you would come into a form position such as this. Why the position? Because it is intrinsic to alignment. This is what always creates travel and gates of movement. You must first have alignment. With then alignment, the occurrence of expansion happens. Contraction comes when there needs to be the fulcrum of that alignment awareness again. Beings of emanation. This is going to take you beyond contraction. Breathe your forms. Assume this position. Soles of feet touch together. You can either serpentine or flat. If it is too much for your embodiment, allow yourself to at least let the edges or the plates of the feet touch each other. If you can, bring your buttocks to the edge of the seat, tuck your formation of your soles of your feet, and tuck them underneath. So you will find that just the heel grazes what would be a crossbar, a vertical line from the base of your spine. You will naturally feel some tension in your knees if you've assumed that position. If the tension in your knees becomes too much, we would suggest that you take a stretching class. That was at our attempt at cosmic humor. If you have not the willingness to do that, please do not overstretch this. Allow yourself to push out ever so slightly. Clear?
Yeah.
Breathe your bodies. Beings, once again. Salutation to creation. two emanation points coming and passing through one another. Start from above you after you have placed your body into the position. An emanation point from above, allow it to have a counter-clockwise spiral, widening to the apex point where it covers your form. Now, as that continues, one thought, you do not have to consider where or how or what it must do. Let that thought go. Simultaneously sponsor the second thought. Allow that one to have an emanation point from underneath your form. It spins clockwise. It has an apex point that goes around the form as well. And as these points spiral, interact, there will be a natural forming diamond inside that encases your form. At this moment, you are required to do nothing other than just pay attention and relax as easily as you can. Keep with the spirals. There is no thinking required. Many of you might notice that there will be a subtle amount of vortice shift, meaning you might feel a subtle nauseousness. You might feel a spin. Do not require or read. It is not needed to find balance in this. You may feel yourself become overwhelmed. You might feel your body begin to sweat. Allow this to continue for as long as the comfort does not dissipate completely. If you start beginning to feel pain, we would ask you to focus on the edges of the diamond that surrounds your form. Now, as you're with us in this formation, we give you the third and final axiom of participation. Entity beings, this will supercharge your existence and free you from the anomaly that we first mentioned, being and merging with you. As you notice this diamond, it has a starting point. It has a starting point at the top and bottom. And the diamond, allow it to start to move. Let go of the thinking or the feeling of the spiral and notice the diamond move. It will either turn in one direction or the other, or it might start becoming gyroscopic and turning on all its axes. Let your mind notice the amount of light that is beginning to emanate from the core of your body. You have entered into the transportation mode of your form. From here, we're not suggesting you go visit your relatives. We are not suggesting you do your humanoid existence. We are suggesting you travel for a few moments. Go beyond the textures of your planet. Allow yourself to go into space. Easy consciousness. Some of you think you have traveled. You call it astral travel. Astral travel is like being in a wormhole. You are creating the wormhole now. You don't walk it. Many would say in these moments, so I have a traveling device. What happens to the body? The body at this moment is being recharged. Some of you are just simply bathed in absolute energetic form. You may call it light. Others of you may be in a transient aspect of thinking. Others still may feel the body. In this moment, we ask you to simply, once again, focus on the dial, spinning on its gyroscopic or axis, or however it is turning. Or simply, maybe you just notice a diamond within. Put your attention on it, consciousness, and soon you will feel your body. For some of you, it might be trembling. For some of you still, it might be absolute in ease. However, this experience is for you. We ask you in this moment to notice the diamond, notice the spiral simultaneously that comes from beneath the clockwise spiral. Simultaneously with this thought, notice the counterclock spiral that comes above it. And in this moment, take this device and place it as it begins to shrink in your very mindful focus. Place it in your solar plexus region with your mind in your body. Now, the StarGate device is once again activated, and it is within you, your physicality, that is. Bring the energetic embodiment focus. Release yourself from this, you would label, position. Let the feet, the soles of your feet, touch the embodiment of the floor. Let your body relax back into a seated device. Beings, notice how there may be a subtle shift or a gross shift. Just notice the ambassador that you are and how the resistance is much gone away. Breathe your forms, and we are on